mkono ambao unalima ardhi, mlango wa kulima kuwa mshindi, kuwa na uhakika sasa, kukulea mustakabali wa baadaye. Tufanye kazi pamoja na tukue pamoja, kuimarisha Kenya ni jukumu la Farm Kenya.
Well, indeed, good afternoon. Welcome. This is Farm Kenya. My name is Peter Wakaba, and this, of course, is the show that brings you up to speed on matters making business, agriculture, climate, and associated topics. Making headlines right across the world, here in East Africa, right here at home in Kenya. We, of course, are your go-to source for all things agriculture and sustainable farming in the region. Now, today we are diving deep into a topic that is vital to our nation's future, that is sustainable food systems, with a focus on a path to food and national security. Now, as Kenya navigates the challenges of ensuring that we have adequate food security for its growing population, the need for sustainable food systems has never been more pressing. Now, what do we mean when we say this? Now, sustainable food systems are systems that deliver food security and nutrition for all, while ensuring that economic and social and environmental bases are attained to generate this food security and nutrition for future generations, for ourselves, and of course to ensure that these are not compromised in the light of the ongoing climate crisis, environmental degradation, and socio-economic challenges. Now, this means that there is an urgent need to rethink and reform our food systems in order to guarantee food security for present and future generations. Now, quite a mouthful, but I'd urge you to stay tuned as we speak to our experts who are already here in studio, because they come with very, very, very high recommendations. I'll just introduce them as we get into this space. Now, Evans Muswahili Ladema is the chairperson of the Lake Region Food Systems Network and a member of the Kenya National Farmers Federation, KENAF. He is on my close left. And of course, next to him, Emmanuel Atamba, who is a food systems policy expert. Now, Atamba works in the governance of food systems transformation space and the Urban Food Futures Project in Kenya. He's going to talk to us, of course, about what his role is in the food systems landscape right across the country. Now, with all this in mind, we, of course, hasten to remind you that food and food security is not only an important issue, it is a matter of health, it is a matter of nutrition, also a matter of food security and politics. Well, with that now out of the way, I think it is time to then sort of get into what is making news right across the region. But before we do that, remind you that the stories we have also supposed to give you insights into the topic of the day and the topic of sustainable food development for now and the future. Let's cultivate change together on Farm Kenya. In the meantime, let's take a quick look at what I've just mentioned, what is making news in the agricultural world. Well, to start us off, we are in the space of certified seeds, whereas farmers are busy preparing their farms ahead of the planting season. Kenya Seed Company now wants farmers to take advantage of certified seeds, which have high yields. Speaking at an agriculture expo in Karatina Stadium, Kenya Seed Company's board chairman, Purity Ngirichi, urged farmers across Mount Kenya to seek expertise from seed experts to ensure that they plant standardized and quality seeds that fit the ecological zone so as to maximize on the production of food. She added that many farmers end up frustrated and disappointed due to buying seeds that don't match the ecological zones, adding that the Kenya Seed Company, together with other stakeholders, will continue to organize such fora.
Mbegu is everything. Mbegu ndio ambayo inafanya mpaka our animals zipate chakula. mbegu ndiyo inafanya tunakuwa na chakula na mmea katika mashamba yetu. So tuseme mbegu ndiyo inashikilia nini? Agriculture. Kwa hivyo sisi wakulima tuendee zile mbegu ambazo ni mbegu safi, mbegu ambazo zimefanywa utafiti, mbegu ambazo zimepewa clean bill of health na KEPHIS na kila mahali, ambazo zinaitwa certified seed, na ambazo kila stakeholder ambaye anafanya utafiti ama anafanya kutoa mbegu, wote wameshikana na tumesema we will make sure that Kenya itakuwa food secure, na nyinyi wakulima mtusaidie na tusaidiane, kwa sababu tena bila nyinyi hakuna mbegu ambayo itajipanda na hakuna mmea ambayo itamea bila mkulima. Kama sasa hivi nikitoka hapa nakimbia mpaka Kitale to make sure wakulima wa Mount Kenya na especially hapa Nyeri mpate ile 6213 ile ambayo mnalia sana hapa na ndio inafanya vizuri sana. I want to make sure ile mbegu inaitwa hybrid 6213 ifike hapa Karatina, ifike Nyeri na ifike mpaka Meru na ifike all parts of Mount Kenya, so that sisi tukue na mavuno ambayo iko na maana.
Well, of course, the mbegu being very important, as she said, but later on we'll be asking our guests, Mr. Atama and Mr. Muswahili, who gets to decide what you plant and why you need to plant one thing or another for any ecological zone, and who gets to make those decisions. But that is later on. Now, moving on, all is set for the Nairobi International Trade Fair, set to take place from Monday the 23rd to Sunday the 29th of September. Now, exhibitors are being urged to come out in numbers and showcase their products. This was said during a forum seeking to assist the exhibitors acquire essential information and expert advice on design of the exhibits to ensure captivating and effective presentations.
This year's theme is promoting climate-smart agriculture and trade initiatives for sustainable economic growth. And all exhibitors are supposed to tailor their exhibits or their theme along the line of this year's theme. And it's the same theme we had last year.
This event, the Nairobi International Trade Fair, offers all exhibitors, including ourselves, a very good opportunity to meet consumers of our products, to offer an opportunity for them to sample, so that when they are going to make their purchase decisions, they are already aware of what kind of products they are going to buy.
And also manufacturing being a major off-taker of agricultural produce, the fair is a platform to showcase the availability of off-takers, a market for the farmers so that they can be able to produce with their end in mind, knowing that there's a buyer to buy from them. And of course, everybody's going to be more economically engaged and earn good income from these kinds of activities.
Well, the government has promised in the coming months to clear over 250 million shillings in pending bills that the new KCC company owes farmers right across the country under a program initiated by the company. Now, farmers will get half of their pay on delivery day and the balance in 2 weeks' time. This emerged when the new management and the board members met the new CS for Cooperatives, Wycliffe Oparanya, in Naivasha to forge a way forward for the organization. Addressing the media after the meeting, Oparanya noted that the milk processor has been making losses for a while, forcing the government to intervene.
And as a government, we have decided on some steps that will make sure that this company, new KCC, is revised, is revived, and is profitable within the next 1 year. We have decided to have a new financial model that will ensure that farmers are paid on time. And I have instructed the board to have a meeting on Monday to find a viable way of making sure farmers at least paid half their money immediately. They deliver milk, and thereafter, within 2 weeks, they are paid the balance.
Well, over now to the Democratic Republic of Congo, where that country has committed to reduce its carbon emissions by about 21%, equivalent to 650 million tons of CO2 emissions by the year 2030. Now, this is in line with the Paris Agreement on Climate Change Declaration, calling for urgent action by developed countries to reduce emissions. Daniel Kariuki has that story.
African countries have continued to be crippled by huge debts as they borrow more funds from the developed countries to address various issues brought about by climate change. Democratic Republic of Congo has walked the talk by signing the agreement that starts its journey towards lowering emissions. In a call to action, African leaders attending the inaugural Africa Climate Summit held in Nairobi, September 2023, stressed the importance of decarbonizing the global economy for equality and shared prosperity. Under the Paris Agreement, DRC has now committed to reduce its emissions by 21%. DRC inked a $48.2 billion deal that will cover its transportation, energy, industry, waste, agriculture and forestry, a move deemed necessary to ensure control, monitoring and reporting of activities aimed at generating, absorbing and reducing greenhouse gas emissions across the national territory in order to ensure that DRC meets its commitments under the Paris Agreement.
The agreement we have just signed represents a significant milestone in our commitment to sustainability and the global fight against climate change.
Jobs are going to be created, 450,000 jobs and 7,500 specialized work is going to be created because of this, and the country is going to benefit a lot.
The deal signed by Congolese Environmental Agency on behalf of Congo government, Lukung Technology Corporation and Shiftings Limited, a limited liability company incorporated in Kenya, will ensure that environmental protection is considered in the execution of any development project involving infrastructure, renewable natural resources, among others.
This partnership will empower local communities to become stewards of their own natural resources. They will be investing in sustainable peatland management practice.
It's important that we've come to this juncture where we signed the contract with Lukong. They're going to help us to address the global warming, to reduce the temperature.
The DRC government has maintained it is committed to the process of establishing the legal and institutional framework related to the carbon market to strengthen its national capabilities to combat climate change, even as focus shifts to other African countries. Daniel Kariuki, KTN News.
Well, on to our farm guide segment now, where Kwale County's sustainable fishing practices revitalize octopus production and gains global market sales amid declining fish populations in the Indian Ocean region due to ecosystem degradation, climate change and unsustainable fishing practices. Now, Kwale County's adoption of sustainable fishing techniques has revitalized octopus production and improved marine ecosystems. As our reporter Levis Musumba now highlights, the octopus closure system established by the Blue Ventures, an international marine conservation organization in partnership with local organizations such as Reefolution and the Coast and Marine Resources Development Organization, has enabled fishermen from the region to double their harvests and their earnings. Consequently, the Kenyan octopus is now becoming competitively priced in international markets, including the United States. Take a look.
It is 6 a.m. in the morning. We are deep in the Indian Ocean and we are going to look for pweza. As the sun rises over the horizon, we set sail from Mukwiro Island on the Kenya's southern coast. we meet the guardians of the ocean, women gleaners like Mzungu Athman.
Mimi binafsi nikiingia katika mambo na uvuvi wa pweza, nilianzia nikiwa primary levels. Tukipata holiday nilikuwa namfuata bibi yangu. Nilisoma kupitia kwake mambo na uvuvi wa pweza. Nikakuwa naangalia jinsi gani anafanya. Vile anatoa, anatafuta zile nyumba za pweza, anatoa pweza, nilikuwa nafuatilia yani kwa umakini zaidi. Mpaka sasa hii vile nikimfuatilia nikiona vile anafanya, pia na mimi nikawa nimepata hamu ya kufanya kitu kama kile. So ilikuwa nikipata nafasi kidogo, ni muda nakimbilia baharini nafanya pia shughuli za pweza.
Kenya's 640-kilometer coastline has long sustained its people. In Mukwiro, the ocean's bounty feeds families and fuels their celebrations.
Ndio tegemeo haswa kwa wakazi wa Mukwiro wote, kina mama zetu, kina bibi zetu, mpaka watoto wetu wote, hata wale waona kwa ile bahari wengi wanavua, mpaka hao kina baba zetu wanaingia. Yani tumetegemea kama ndio tegemeo letu, tutasomeshea, tutategemea ndio chakula chetu, tutategemea ndio yani kila kitu ndio tegemeo letu.
Mimi nimezaliwa katika familia ya uvuvi na baba walikuwa mvuvi, na pia mimi na ndugu yangu mkubwa pia tukaingia katika hii shughuli ya uvuvi. Nyanya pia alikuwa ni mvuvi wa pweza.
We realized that most of these fishermen fish in shallow waters or near shore, so there is an opportunity from them to get a more advanced technology to go and fish in deep water so that they can get more fish, which fetch more market prices.
But the tides are changing. Ecosystem degradation, climate change, and unsustainable practices have left these waters depleted.
Samaki zimepungua. Samaki nyakati zile zilikuwa samaki ni nyingi.
There's changing patterns of fish spawning. Some are either spawning too early because of the heat stress, or they are spawning too late. Fish goes to deeper waters, so fishermen are unable to access the fish. There's coral bleaching, which is now becoming very perennial, unlike before across the whole of Western Indian Ocean. And this is really affecting the health of the marine environment.
In response, Blue Ventures Kenya, along with the Re-Evolution and Comrade, is revitalizing the fisheries sector through community-driven marine conservation. A key initiative is the Octopus Closure Project.
One of our main values is to ensure community sustainable livelihoods, and this livelihood is mainly directed through fishing. So if we close the area and there's abundance of octopus during the openings, then the fishers, the gleaners, are going to sell this fish to dealers. Once the fish is sold to dealers, the fishers make money and fend for themselves.
When we talk about one of the benefits of an octopus closure is increased catch. That means that there will definitely be increased income in the community. So this income partly is supposed to ensure that it goes to support the management measure in terms of octopus closure, supporting patrols, supporting data collectors. So when fisheries is rebuilt and there is increase in income in the community, then there is available income to support running of the management measure.
Finally, we are leaving Mukwiro. We are headed to Munje for continuation of this octopus story.
In Munje, the community has successfully implemented 3 octopus closures, each learning from the last. These required careful planning, strong community involvement, and clear communication.
An octopus closure gives fishermen an opportunity for conservation, protecting the marine habitats and the marine life. But at the same time, They give an opportunity for short-term gains because we close for 3 months. Then it's open for 3 days, they fish. So they get the short-term gains in terms of the catches they get for food, for nutrition, but also income.
Since the project began, octopus populations have rebounded, leading to larger catches and increased incomes.
Kiukali mradi ujio wake ni mzuri kwa sababu kuna wakati unakaa kwa nyumba imefungwa, ile tengefu tumefungiwa, lakini kuna muda unaweka, unajua wazi mimi niko hapa, lakini ikifika tarehe fulani kwa kitu fulani kiko mbele yangu ambacho ninataka nikifanye. So unakaa, lakini unajua wazi nikienda pale nikivuna kitu hii nitaondoa.
Kwanza tunashukuru hichi chombo ni kikubwa, kwenye wimbi chaweza pita pia. Sasa hii tumepata nguvu kufanya doria hiyo sehemu ya juu, kwa sababu kuna watu ambao wanapitia sehemu ya juu na sisi tukiwa huku chini watu waone, lakini kwa sasa na imani kila kitu kitakuwa sawa.
The new chapter begins as 30 women cleaners from Mukwiro arrive in Munje, eager to learn.
Nimejifunza ya kuwa kwanza kuko na tofauti ya tengefu na eneo ambalo linafanywa uvuvi kwa kila siku. Tengefu ni sehemu ambayo imetengwa kwa ajili ya mavuno ya muda. Na tumeona pia katika tengefu yao kuna pweza ambao ni wazuri na wakubwa. Unaweza pata kiasi cha pweza ambaye pweza mmoja anaanzia kilo 1 hadi kilo 3 mpaka 4.
This exchange program fosters empowerment and resilience as women like Mzungu pass on their skills to others.
In terms of gender mainstreaming in fisheries, we think that this is a very good example of how women can even participate in fishing itself.
The Munje project has benefited over 3,700 residents, including 260 fishermen and fish vendors. Additionally, 15 rangers, 6 data collectors, and 8 underwater monitors have been trained through the initiative.
The long term is that with the appreciation that fisheries management actually has benefits to their livelihood, then most communities are going to take up. And we're just seeing Mukwiro as an example that is taking up a few months after Munje closure, that they're also thinking that fisheries management like octopus closure is a viable, closure in general is a viable fisheries management for them. That means that we are likely to see more fisheries management in terms of closures.
Back to Mukwiro Island, the celebrations are in full swing as the community launches its first ever octopus closure.
Mukwiro BMU had an opportunity to learn and see through the closure that Munje has set in place, and of course learn from the challenges they had. And that's why if you see Mukwiro today, with the support of our partner Revolution, the process has been faster compared to the experience we had with the Munje BMU.
In Mukwiro Island, the Revolution organization has empowered 46 cleaners, including 40 women, by establishing marine protected areas and promoting community-based fisheries management.
So as Revolution, we are looking to restore, despite having made a few steps back, and also through the bleaching we have made a few steps backwards. We are looking to continue with restoration, not just one side of the reef but also both sides, so that if we restore the area in different forms, then we are likely to have more corals in the area supported than the ones that are going to die.
Communities are appreciating that they can participate in fisheries conservation measures that are simple and beneficial in the short term, and they see the benefits and now start appreciating the scaling up of such. So it's through this that we've been able to scale this through knowledge exchange, through learning exchange in other communities that are seeing that this is a practical fisheries management measure that is applicable.
Supporting small-scale octopus fisheries in tropical regions can provide a sustainable source of food and income. Crucial as 2.3 billion people globally, including 1.9 million in Kenya, face food insecurity. with climate change threatening land-based food systems.
Octopus, or locally known as pweza, has been the traditional delicacy among the coastal communities. But with the inception of octopus closure in Kwale County, this project is now turning this traditional delicacy into a source of revenue for thousands of households. As this project goes on, communities are now looking up to it to unlock the untapped resources in the marine sector. For KTN News, I'm Levis Msumba.
Indeed, pweza, right then. My good friend Musumba there with an excellent story about the benefits of octopus and the ecosystem. But we feel ametuangusha kidogo because he's wearing his trousers in the middle of the ocean. But story for another day. Let's now move on to the prices segment, where we look at the commodity prices that are pertaining throughout the week across the region. This week we're looking at the prices of Irish potatoes with wholesale and retail prices across various fresh produce markets right across the country.
StarTime's home solar solution with solar panels, hybrid inverter, and lithium battery, empowering you to do the things that really matter. A complete and reliable home solar solution. Call us today. StarTime Solar. Power your life.
Bosco, in Zari, nothing is certain.
Nothing will ever be the same again.
Will you survive the jealousy?
Unajiona tajiri, eh? Zitaisha tu tuone utaringa na pesa gani.
The secrets.
Ukiambia mtu yeyote, Bosco.
Nini uniambia Lola?
The deception.
To family.
Will Nina survive Lola?
How is this possible?
The ultimate face-off. Zari continues weeknights at 8:30 on Maisha Magic Plus, DSTV channel 163, GoTV channel 3.
Dakar mamilivi rahisi. Uko na nafasi tatu ya kuwa millionaire kila awa. Usipitwe. Cheza Dakar. Ushike mita yako sasa. Chagua nambari zako 4 za bahati and win up to 10 million every 20 minutes. Nenda kwenye paybill 440440. Account KTN. Amount. Cheza na shilingi 20 hadi shilingi 2,000 na ushinde mamilioni. Dakar Mita. Kuwa bingwa.
Ale umetenda Baba, yote ni makuu, maana wayatenda kwa upendo. Yale unasema Baba, yote ni kweli, maana pia wayasema kwa upendo. O yale umetenda Baba, yote ni makuu, maana wayatenda kwa upendo.
StarTimes Home Solar Solution with solar panels, hybrid inverter, and lithium battery, empowering you to do the things that really matter. A complete and reliable home solar solution. Call us today. StarTimes Solar. Power your life.
Kuwa mkono ambao unalima ardhi, mlango wa kulima, kuwa mshindi, kuwa na uhakika sasa, kulea mustakabali wa baadaye. Tufanye kazi pamoja na tukue pamoja, kuimarisha Kenya ni jukumu la Farm Kenya.
Well, indeed, thank you for staying with us here on Farm Kenya. Again, my name is Peter Wakaba. Now, in this second part of the show, we want to delve into our conversation around food systems, transformation, and governance. And as earlier promised, we will take a closer look at sustainable food systems and how they pave the way towards food and nutritional security. Now, with the challenges that are being posed by climate change, population growth, and diminishing natural resources, the need for food systems that can sustain future generations is now more than ever more necessary. Now, to help us understand these matters better, we're privileged to have two gentlemen with us here in studio. Evans Mswahili Ladema is the chairperson of the Lake Region Food Systems Network and is a member of the Kenya National Farmers Federation, KENAF. He holds a Bachelor of Arts in Development Studies, basic training in law, that is from the Legal Resource Foundation and Kituo cha Sheria. He is a biodiversity and agroecology enthusiast, a climate justice advocate, and a food systems transformation practitioner. Quite a mouthful right there. Yeah. Now we also have Emmanuel Atamba, who is a food systems policy expert. Mr. Atamba has worked on the governance of food systems transformation and the Urban Food Futures project in Kenya. He has had an active role in the food systems landscape right across the country through his works on human rights to food and relevant policies. He has also previously worked in different agricultural development programs and initiatives across Kenya, Somalia, and Uganda. He is an agricultural economics major. Karibu sana to both of you. I'll start off with you, Atamba, and I want you to basically boil this down for us. People will hear others talk about food systems transformation. They'll talk about food systems transformation governance. What are food systems, and what are those two other terms? What do they mean?
Yeah, thanks, Peter, and thanks for hosting me.
Thank you.
I think when we talk about food systems, we are basically talking about how we handle, how we produce our food, how that food moves from one point to another, if we are adding value to the food, if we are doing processing to the food, how that process is handled, and how eventually that food is consumed. And it does not only end there, it also looks at the entire journey that the food has gone. What are some of the impacts that that process has caused on people, on livelihoods, on environment, as well as also when you're talking about consumption, also the impacts that it has on human health. So whether positive or negative impacts that our food system has. So it's the entire journey, but the most important thing is that we are also reflecting and saying how we grew these tomatoes. What did it do to the bees? What did it do to the pollinators? What did it do to the soil? And throughout the entire journey, who benefited in the process, who had the power to decide.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's a whole spectrum of looking at food systems, but turning it upside down and again reevaluating and saying, okay, what are we doing? What are we impacting with how we grow, trade, or process and do all these things, and how we consume our food. So that is food systems in a nutshell.
Yes.
So to a layman, for me, I'll just say it's basically how we grow and consume our food. That is exactly what we are talking about in terms of food systems.
Then there's also, we'll talk about the transformational aspect.
Yes.
Because we know that these systems are like living organisms. They are constantly in motion. Talk to us about what that transformation means, and then the governance aspect.
So in terms of when you talk about transformation,
yes,
you transform something to move it from a situation that it already has or it's at to something else.
Yes.
And as we know, Wakaba today, there are people who have not had lunch as we speak.
Yes.
And there are people who did not have breakfast, and there are people who are still in the streets not knowing whether they are going to have dinner or not. So that is one indicator that we need to transform our food systems, because we have not been able to achieve food security, sustainable food security for all. We have not been able to achieve nutrition goals. There are at least about 18% of children under 5 years who are stunted. And when you talk to people about it, they say, no, it's an improvement, because in 2014 it was 24% stunting rate. But it's not an improvement, because we still have 18% of all children under 5 years stunted. And when you are stunted, sometimes you're stunted for life. It really takes a lot of rigorous initiatives to convert that situation into something, into a different outcome. So that tells us that the nutrition quality of our food is wanting. We have issues of overweight and obesity also on the rise that affect all of us. And this also tells us that there is something wrong about our food systems. And then the other aspect is, again, when you look at food systems vis-a-vis climate change issues, you see that we are having a very serious level of susceptibility to climate change impacts. You saw the floods the other day, and the first thing we are thinking about is, are we going to have wunga? Are we going to have vegetables? Are we going to have milk because of the floods and all this? So we are at a situation where our food system is at risk, and therefore we need to secure that.
Yes.
So these are elements of transformation that we are looking at. So transforming food systems is addressing these needs, starting with the most primary responsibility or role of our food system, which is to ensure that each and every person has access to adequate food. And this is enshrined in the Constitution, Article 43(1)(c). So in a situation where even just one person in Kenya, I'm not saying one Kenyan, and I'm very deliberate about that, because it's not about only Kenyans. There are people in the streets in Nairobi today that are not Kenyans. But each and every person within our jurisdiction is supposed to have access to adequate food of sufficient quality and quantity. When that has not happened, it takes us back to think about what went wrong. Why is this person not having the food they need?
Very interesting. Yeah. And Evans Muswahili Ladema, this is where I want you to come in, because bearing in mind what he said,
yes,
but then we hear that, and we know that we live in a free market.
True.
And that people are supposed to work so they can then eat. So then where is the balance between ensuring that there is a thriving market that carries along people and their livelihoods, but also ensures that people get adequate nutrition and can eat?
Thank you. The answer to your question is addressed in the whole idea of sustainable food system that you alluded to in your introduction.
Yes.
Because a sustainable food system will ensure that we all get healthy and nutritious food. But again, the factors of production that are being used are available equitably. So that I'm not the only one who's able to produce, but any other person is also able to produce. And if they're not producing, then they have a role they can play along the food value chain. And it goes beyond that. Again, we want to look at a situation where even the people who work within the food ecosystem, be it farm workers, be it people who do trade in business, business in food, these people should equally get fair returns.
Yes.
So that at the end of the day, we are looking at an ecosystem that is taking care of everyone. No one is being left behind. No one is being treated unfairly.
Yes.
That they are all contributing to development of the food system, but at the end of the day, each one of them is walking away with good nutrition, with food, and with other accrued benefits, like when you talk about the economics of food production.
Yes.
Those that produce, like being a farmer like myself.
Yes.
I ought to produce, and at the end of the day, the returns from the work that I'm doing should be reasonable returns. But that should not be at a point when I've sold food very expensively to the consumer. Yeah, so it is all boiling down to the kind of sustainability that we're referring to within the food system. If it is sustainable,
yes,
it will ensure that all are fed and fed well, fed in terms of eating healthy food, food that is not poison to you,
yes,
food that does not make you turn obese or hypertensive, food that does not bring other complications but makes your body to be good. It's of adequate amounts,
yes,
of good quality, but again affordable, accessible, and all those other.
Yes, so let's then talk about the power dynamics. Who gets to decide that this is what then will make it sustainable?
Yeah.
So that who provides the access? Whose work is it to ensure the things that you're talking about?
Yeah, it's a very interesting question in the sense that when we look at the way our food systems are structured today,
yes,
you realize that those that hold, those that wield power,
yes,
in terms of political and economic power, have a greater say.
Yes.
But to me, this should not be the case. To me, this should be the very primary producers, the farmers like myself, and other people who are involved in the extractive part of it, be it the fisher folk,
yes,
should actually be holding the larger say. Because at the end of the day, these are the people who shoulder the burden of feeding all of us.
Yes.
And that a number of them are doing it not with a profit mission, but because they have passion for it. And therefore, if we were to transfer power into the hands of these people, I want to believe that whatever decisions that will be made at that particular point will be the right decisions. But as of now, to answer your question, I strongly feel that the power to make decisions around food systems has become a reserve of
yes,
the political and economic elite. Yeah.
So, Atamba, this week,
yes,
the Africa Food Systems Forum is supposed to get underway in Kigali.
Yes.
And a lot of the things that we have seen, we have heard in the past, have people talking about the power dynamics as well, talking about, for example, this week there has been lots of conversation about indigenous seeds and the laws that have been put in place ostensibly, whether it's misinformation or not, to criminalize the multiplication, the storage, the sharing of indigenous seeds, so to say, while the opposite has also been done, because we've seen a formalization of and mainstreaming, so to say, of the foreign sourced, foreign developed hybrids, that sort of thing. And I'm not sure that's exactly right, but these are the things that people are talking about. This creates the sense that there is a power dynamic and that then the governance issue becomes interesting in this case. Where would we even begin to have this conversation? Yes.
You know, when you say people are talking about this,
yes,
you are giving me an idea of where you discuss with people.
Yes.
But on a light note. But I think there has been a lot of controversy when it comes to the regulatory frameworks around our food. As Mr. Mswahili has rightly put it, there's a contest between who should decide what, and who should have more say than the other. The reality of it is that every single person and every single entity has a role to play.
Yes.
And here I would like us first to divide the food systems actors into three. You have the government, which serves as a regulator, but also which serves as the ultimate duty bearer when it comes to ensuring that everyone has the right to food. And this is in the Constitution, and the government can do nothing about it. That it is the responsibility of the government to ensure that every person has access to adequate food of sufficient quality. And when the government is not able to do that, we should be even suing the government. And this is an option that Kenyans should have. So when you're talking about prices going up and all that, the government is the ultimate responsible.
With various mechanisms to do that.
With various mechanisms to do that. But ultimately, government works in different ways. Sometimes government works during the day, sometimes it works during the night. We don't care what time they work, but what we want to see at the end of the day is that Mswahili has the lunch that he needs to have.
Yes.
And if he has a child, that child has the nutrition that they need to have to grow, to be a human being.
The reason I was interjecting, Atamba, is because there are those who will tell you that the government of Kenya importing crude palm oil to sell into the market. Is government intervening in the market to do what you're saying?
No. So now, let's take it step by step.
Yes.
So the government has that responsibility.
Yes.
But of course, the government also has obligations that ensure that they do not do anything that is injurious to that same right. That they are not going, for example, if there is a growing market of edible oil in the country.
Or a shortage.
Yeah. The government, let's say the government is supposed to encourage that we have local production because
facilitate.
then it facilitate. Yes. So that then we have, sovereignty when it comes to that particular commodity. We have a robust maize sector, for example, subsector, for example. It is the responsibility of the government to ensure that whatever happens, that sector is, the productivity of that sector is able to be maintained to ensure that Kenyans are not waiting for maize coming from, different countries. Because then you really don't have sovereignty around that. And that applies to all products. So the government has, in legal terms, we say the responsibility to ensure that there is no retrogression of rights. So if today I take over as president and the food security level is, let's say we only have 20% of Kenyans facing a mild level of food insecurity, I have the responsibility as the head of state or the government, the regime in place, to ensure that I do not now end up making 20% to be 21%. I can only make it better. So that should be something that we should also take the government to account. But when you talk about mechanisms, so part of the mechanisms is actually regulations. The government cannot do anything without the requisite legal frameworks. So sometimes when I see some of the politics out there, there was this Ndengu bill that people are saying, now you're going to be criminalized when you grow Ndengu. No, this is basically a proposal of a legal framework to safeguard the livelihoods of farmers that are engaging in this crop. And the challenge that we have, and that's why I was saying sometimes when people talk about these things, they really, hype them, is, they distort the information that is there, is that we are also, as actors in this space, blocking the government from fulfilling its mandate by creating a lot of misinformation about some of the existing legal frameworks. On the seeds thing, for example, it is called the Seed and Plant Varieties Act for a reason. When you talk about plant varieties, not everything you see green is a plant variety. A plant variety is a variety that has been registered by KEFIS. So KEFIS holds the list of varieties. So the entire seed law is based on exactly that list that is held by KEFIS as the list of varieties. So not all the maize that is existing in Kenya are maize varieties. So we don't even have indigenous varieties. We can only have indigenous seeds or indigenous cultivars. So that misinformation that exists creates a lot of distortion, creates a lot of noise. Civil society organizations sometimes, we also spend a lot of money in really chasing what was called hot air. We are chasing hot instead of really focusing on how can we strengthen the legal frameworks to ensure that each Kenyan participating in food systems is able to earn a living and a viable livelihood for that matter, and the people who are waiting for that system to deliver food to them are also able to get their fair share that is safe and adequate.
I want to bring in Mr. Ladema, because I think you said something quite interesting in the last bit there. The fact that we all have a role to play, and that we're expected to first hold government to account and then play a role in the governance aspect. But most people, as a person, it might be very difficult to understand these things, might be very difficult to have access. What then is the role of being members? You mentioned that you're a member of KENAF.
Oh, yes.
What role does organizing yourself into bodies such as this then give you? What ability does it confer on you as a person because you organize? What are the benefits?
Yeah, thank you very much for the question. The fact that farmers of this country have come together under a collective known as KENAF is something that is very progressive in the sense that it seeks actually to address some of those challenges that you're alluding to. The fact that we are at different levels of understanding, we are at different levels of exposure, we are at different levels of even education and knowledge acquisition means that when we come together, regardless of the differences in our capacities, we are able to organize and mobilize as institutions that then can have power to engage government and engage government meaningfully, power to engage the private sector and other service providers and engage them meaningfully, and ensure that whatever knowledge and capacity gaps that were there in the constituency that we come from are mitigated for when we speak in one voice and when we have one agency. And I want to believe this is really happening.
How do you engage on the basis of trust? Because we know that is one commodity in Kenya which has been really so. In fact, many people listening to Mr. Saba simply may be saying, we know where he's speaking from. And I said speak because I've engaged both in at the professional level.
Yes.
And I've engaged, as we say, at the banter level, at the grassroots.
Yeah.
And the consensus, even from people who are completely learned and are scientists, they push back and see that sometimes they don't really believe what is being talked about and that sort of thing. How do we begin to build trust in the systems, trust in the information, and then, of course, the verification aspects?
True. Among the many tragedies that happened to Kenya, the lack of trust is one among those tragedies. And it's something that we all must work very hard to come out of, because Kenyans have been lied to for far too long and for so much that they can hardly believe anything that comes by.
They become cynical.
Exactly, they're so cynical, and we won't blame them for that.
Yes.
But what I'm trying to imagine here is that we all need to try our level best to try and live by the dictates of our constitution. Because if we go by the dictates of our constitution and we have that constitutionalism in us, we'll be able to start respecting things like our national values and principles of governance, for example. Where now, if it's a question of maybe organizing things like public participation, we have a brilliant idea that is emanating from government or even the private sector, and it has to get into the greater public.
Yes.
Then we have public participation that is organized with very good intentions, where the public is very well facilitated to be able to engage and participate, and whatever that comes out of the public is again put into consideration. I want to believe if we were to work on things like those ones, we undertake meaningful public participation and civic engagement, we ensure we reduce the kind of incoherence in the way we speak as duty bearers, and I know we'll come to that at some point.
Yes.
Then we'll nurture and grow some trust in the population that will then make it easy for us even to roll out programs, come up with the new initiatives that will have a very good uptake without people being doubting Thomases. But before I proceed, I want to believe that I didn't adequately answer your previous question, because you wanted to know from me how institutions like KENAF then ensure that
farmers are adequately represented.
Exactly. Yeah. Among the many things we do is to, take advantage of the governance processes that are there. For instance, in our counties, that we go through a 5-year cycle of planning and budgeting.
Yes.
So my institution, that is KENAF, what we did was to ensure that at the very onset, when the county governments were organizing for preparation of the third generation CIDP, many of our members were in those, public participation forums.
Yes.
And they just didn't go for purposes of going. They went after we had sat and discussed and said, these are some of our priorities. So that each and every member from our organization is going to push for those particular priorities for consideration. So public participation.
And just to remind people that CIDP is the County Integrated Development Plan.
Oh yes. The County Integrated Development Plan. And that is very important for all Kenyans countrywide, because we know that a substantial amount of the agriculture function has been devolved. And therefore, when it comes to farmers having their voice and participating in decision making at that level in the county, then the CIDP becomes one such avenue that is very good. We are going to a short break, but before we go, very briefly, on the same issue of trust, you find a lot of time that we've abrogated the responsibility of talking about really important things, mostly to politicians and others, and this has perpetuated the challenges that we have, including people being taken advantage of. How, in your opinion, should we start to take this trust back?
Yeah, I think Mswahili has really nailed it. It's really a question about having the right information, creating awareness, and understanding. And I think it is Patrice Lumumba, PLO, who said that politicians do not become geniuses through the ballot. So understanding that politicians can also make mistakes, and being ready as the people who put the politicians there to put them in check. The news that I just saw, for example, sitting here, that the new cooperative CS has put in 500 million shillings towards KCC, the new KCC. let's remember that the same government in December 2023 had listed KCC for privatization. And that case is still in court. And the person who took that case to court has now joined government. So are we putting 500 million before we sell, or have we now said as government that we are not going to sell it?
So have we cured the problem?
Have we cured the problem? And you see a lot of companies were put on the list to be sold. Some of them are profit generating, like Kenya Seed Company, for example. And you can see even the news item today about the Kenya Seed and about the importance of seed, yet the same government lists this company to be sold.
And strategic importance.
Yeah, so let Kenyans know that we elected our cousins, we elected our friends, we elected our schoolmates, and they are not geniuses. So let's also remember that it is our responsibility to remind them that Peter, hapa umechoma, so that we can keep the politicians in line and ensure that our interests are taken care of.
Okay, interesting. So we want to go to that break now, but when we come back, gentlemen, I want us to then walk step by step through the entire production, through the entire beneficiation, through the entire going to market process. So we are then able to look at the various governance and participation aspects that farmers might enjoy, and then critique what has been done and what they can do to get into this space. But that, of course, is right after the break. We'll be back in just a couple of minutes. Do stay with us here on Farm Kenya. That's in 2 minutes.
Unalima ardhi, mlango wa kulima kuwa mshindi, kuwa na uhakika sasa, kukulea mustakabali wa baadaye. Tufanye kazi pamoja na tukue pamoja, kuimarisha Kenya ni jukumu la Farm Kenya.
StarTime's home solar solution with solar panels, hybrid inverter, and lithium battery, empowering you to do the things that really matter. A complete and reliable home solar solution. Call us today. StarTime Solar. Power your life.
Tech 101, brought to you by Oppo Reno 12 series. Turn your average photos into awesome with the AI Eraser 2.0. Click to remove passing strangers from your pics and delete unwanted objects with ease. Just circle or tap for seamless photo repairs. Your memories made into ideal images in an instant.
Levantou a bola. Que é isso? Que jogadaça do Belushi. Olha só. Primeiro ele levantou, fingiu que ia dar o chutão. Chapeuzinho, penteou o cabelo.
Goal and assist for the Brazilian, and a few moments of brilliant skill, but he may just have overran that one.
Season. Enjoy na GoTV. Beste yako wafuta. Tuna connect na ligi zote. Jishikie GoTV leo ujinice na the best futa live on Supersport. GoTV. Love it.
beste yako wafuta. Tuna connect na ligi zote. Jishikie GoTV leo ujinice na the best futa live on Supersport. GoTV, love it.
Cheji is still in there. Watch your Lorimier. Lorimier furiously trying to close the gap. Kim Yeager can taste victory, but it's not over yet. She opens up a gap. Is it big enough? Can she strike? I think she can. History beckons for the Kenyan captain. Leading from the front, leading by example. Take a moment to savour these images. We've never seen anybody win.
Welcome to the world of casino games on 1xBet. And let the luck be on your side. Slot games on 1xBet, where fortune awaits.
StarTime's home solar solution with solar panels, hybrid inverter, and lithium battery, empowering you to do the things that really matter. A complete and reliable home solar solution. Call us today. StarTime Solar. Power your life.
Kuwa mkono ambao unalima ardhi, mlango wa kulima, kuwa mshindi, kuwa na uhakika sasa, kukulea mustakabali wa baadaye. Tufanye kazi pamoja na tukue pamoja, kuimarisha Kenya ni jukumu la Farm Kenya.
Majina ninaitwa Caroline Lunge Wambua. Area yangu ni Masinga, Machakos County, Masinga Sub-County, Kidioko Sub-Location. Mimi ni mkulima wa ile tu chakula inafuniwa huku kambani, mahindi, kila kitu, maharagwe, kawaida. Sasa nimeanza kuintroduce mambo ya fruits. Nimeanza kupanda maembe, machungwa, dimu, miti yoyote tu, ukulima yoyote tu. Nimeanza kujikakamua, kujaribu kutafuta bahati kila hali ya ukulima ndio niendelee kujisaidia kimaisha. Hii ukulima ya nyuki nilifikiria kuanza juu ya zile shida, zile changamoto ziko huku kambani, mara kuna mvua, mara hakuna mvua. Niliona tu kipindi, nikaona vile nyuki, ukulima ya nyuki inasaidia. Nilikuwa naona kwa TV ya KTN, ninaona vipindi vya ukulima, ninaona vile wanafuna, vile wanasaidika, na nikafikiria siku moja nitaanza hii ukulima ya nyuki. Nilipata merry-go-round hii ya wamama. Nikapata tu pesa kidogo ya wamama. Na nikaamua nitanunua beehives ndio nianze ukulima ya nyuki. Na kuanzia hapo nikachukua hatua na nikajikakamua na nikaanza hiyo ukulima.
Well, indeed, thank you very much for staying with us. Off that story, there are farmer of the day doing good things in the agriculture space. Now, we're back here in studio with our two guests, as indicated, we continue our discussion about the various aspects of the value chain and the transformation and governance aspects of food systems. I still have my guests here in studio to remind you the names: Emmanuel Atamba, food systems policy expert, and of course, Evans Muswahili Ladema, chairman of the Lake Region Food Systems Network. To start us off, I think we look at what exactly has been happening and what has not happened. Gentlemen, we've discussed a lot about a lot of the things that should be. I think a good place to start this second part is to talk about the challenges that you face. I think I want to start off with you, Ledama, as a farmer.
Yeah.
And as a person in that space, what are the main challenges that you have encountered that are stopping you doing what we've talked about?
Thank you very much. Today, an ordinary Kenyan farmer is someone who's struggling so much. Struggling with factors, I can say, both from within and without.
Yes.
From without, these are external factors over which this farmer has very little influence over or control over. These range from things like, the high cost of production inputs. Of course, there's the issue of climate change that we all are aware of. We have, the issue around the morals and the values of the people who we work with and we live with.
Yes.
More often than not, you'll hear our farmers complain that their livestock have been stolen. Of course, we know, like in some parts of Kenya, it's such a big problem. We hear about the cattle rustling in Baringo and elsewhere.
Yes.
But just as it happens in Baringo, in the rest of Kenya, there are farmers who struggle with, their chicken being stolen.
Security.
Their maize, just being harvested.
Yeah, from the shamba.
From the shamba. Someone is expecting to get the maize, drying up so that they do cereal.
Yes.
But someone comes and plucks the entire maize and goes to the market as green maize. Yeah. So, issues of theft, issues of climate change, as I'm putting it, the high cost of inputs. And then, of course, now when you come to within, you realize that our soils are no longer as healthy as they were.
Yes.
Our soils have undergone a lot of degradation, both arising from, continuous cultivation,
yes,
but also because of poor agronomic practices that most of the farmers have been employing. You realize that when the fertility levels went down, many farmers went into external inputs like fertilizer, petrochemical fertilizers, which after having been used for quite some time, the soils either became too acidic, they formed hard pans, the water retention capability of the soils just went down, so there are no longer soil living microorganisms. So all these factors, again, are making it very difficult for a Kenyan farmer today to thrive, despite the fact that they're really struggling and they really want to.
Yes.
Yeah.
Quite a lot to unpack there. And I'll come back to you for possible solutions, because I know, of course, that farmers have their own homegrown solutions, and, of course, you have been engaging. I want to come to Emmanuel. The fact of the matter is there are various challenges that you have also found that are holding farmers back, are holding people at various stages across the entire value chain. Talk to us about this.
Yeah, I think Mr. Mswahili raises a very important point, and I remember one time we were doing county participation, actually together with KENAF.
Yes.
And when we raised this point, because we asked what is the number one problem that farmers face in that particular county in Western Kenya, I'll not mention the county because my lawyer is on holiday. But but one of the challenges, it was not about pests, it was not about diseases, it was about theft. And just to add to his list, some of the things that farmers are struggling with, especially in Western Kenya and in areas that you'd consider to be high potential, therefore should be food secure, is even stealing of farm implements and farm equipment. Water pumps, pipes, and all these things. So farmers are being set back 10 times. And if you ask yourself, if you drive towards Ngong Road at 10 p.m., you'll see the yards there with very nice cars worth millions of shillings. The cars are not locked up. You can see the cars. You can actually go and touch them.
Even the curious.
Yes. You can actually go and touch them. But no one steals from those car yards. No one steals from there. No one steals from malls and supermarkets. Because development has reached there. That, there's security, there's police stations and all that. We need to look at food systems and agricultural development from a holistic perspective and address rural development as a whole. And when you address rural development, you address security challenges, you address unemployment in rural areas, because you cannot farm around unemployed, hungry people. They will steal all your produce. They even harvest bananas before you know that they were ready. So you come check and your bananas are not there. And these are serious issues to farmers.
Definitely.
You can imagine if you had a car yard and you woke up in the morning and there was nothing in that yard, you'll definitely go out of business. That is the same thing that happens to farmers. The other aspect of rural development that is very important for farmers is to address time poverty. In rural areas, you find that people do not have access to tap water. And they do not have access to water around them in some areas. You find that especially women in rural areas and girls have to walk kilometers still in this day and age to get water. That time spent, or I would say wasted, to go and get water from very far, if that water was piped and brought closer to their households, you'll find that women, a lot of women in rural areas would be investing that time in doing agricultural enterprises and therefore improving production, improving their own food security and enhancing production, contributing to our food basket. But we are missing out on that because we are not tackling that. You know, issues of firewood, access to clean energy, and energy also for use in farm operations. Today, the government is still taxing solar energy, for example. A lot of farmers who are in rural areas where the main grid has not reached are depending on solar. So why are we not addressing issues of ensuring that farmers can use, for example, solar-powered irrigation, which is clean, climate-friendly, and is also economically efficient for farmers? So these are some of the things that we have to look at in a very holistic manner to ensure that then the farmer has the right capacity to really transform. Farmers are not waiting for anyone to feed them or anyone to give them anything. They don't need handouts. They don't need even the subsidies that we are pumping billions into. What farmers need is an enabling environment. And I think here is where we need to take the counties to task. We are seeing counties spending a lot of money. There was a county, I will not mention the name, that spent a lot of millions in putting flowers for a certain event, one-day event, millions of shillings. These resources from counties are supposed to create that enabling environment for farmers to be able to produce, to be able to generate revenue, so that we are addressing rural poverty.
Do you think farmers at the grassroots have been empowered enough and organized enough to be able to demand these things? Because we know that they're supposed to be planning for resources that come before, so that they get into the budget and are prioritized during the next financial year. Do you think they're taking part?
Farmers are organized, but there has been effort for many years, even before I was born in this country, to always disorganize farmers. You know, farmer associations were very strong during the second president's regime. You know, who disorganized them? It is the government. So you see that even if farmers are trying to organize even at county level to really take proposals, to take petitions, there is a lot of deliberate effort to disorganize them. And you see that, for example, if you ask you know, an average farmer today, what are the functions that the county is supposed to deliver and what are the functions that the national is supposed to deliver, they will be confused between the two levels of government. And this has been done deliberately by the political class, because you see a member of parliament posting on social media that they have done a road, which is not part of their docket, and a senator who has done what and what. And so this confusion is created by the political class to a point that it becomes very difficult to create very strong mechanisms for accountability. So the farmer is there, they see that there's a problem, but they simply don't know who to ask. So it is upon civil society, which I think also should take part of the blame, because we also have a very weak civil society. And as I said, sometimes we focus on non-issues and we forget the real issues. It is upon civil society to really do its mandate, to organize producers and to organize also consumers on the other side, so that we have a very meaningful debate about how we want to move forward with our food systems.
I want to come to Mr. Mswahili. Evans, what is the place then of locally developed but modern solutions to all these challenges we've talked about, especially in view of, for example, and I'm glad you brought up the issue of the cars and things on Ngong Road. If you go to parts of this country, you'll find charcoal and other things by the roadside for weeks, and nobody touches them. Because people respect the sanctity of private property in these places. How do we get these values to start working in other places at such a level?
It's a tall order. It's a tall order because it requires a whole mind,
change in mindset.
Change in mindset. But again, there's also need to even strengthen governance systems in those rural areas. Because I remember when I was young, there used to be a team of robbers that used to operate in my area. And they were so callous and so courageous that they would write to you and tell you, on this date, we are coming to clean up your shop.
Really?
And they would come,
Wow.
And it was so bad.
What about the local police? And
they were there. In fact, a number of times those people could rob just close to a police station. And I want to believe at that time it was because of the weakness in the way the
collision and
the police force of that time was organized.
Yes.
Today we have a police service.
Yes.
I want to believe things are a little bit better. Now, you realize that because of perhaps many years of...
were they ever arrested?
Oh, no. No one.
They went scot-free.
Oh, no one ever got arrested. Probably they have been dealt with by rules of natural justice elsewhere in a different way.
Yes.
But those guys never got to get arrested. But I also wanted to say that the kind of challenges that my brother and I have just alluded to,
yes,
in terms of where people don't even respect private property, it is also informed by a number of reasons. One of them being perhaps just the low moral values that are there. But again, when you look at people who have been sort of dispossessed and people have been marginalized for so long, they tend to develop a feeling of hatred against those people who are having anything around them. And their biggest motivation is always to go and take it from them. So they don't care
Yes.
what happens thereafter. Yeah, and if we were to change the way we even share the kind of benefits that are accrued within our spaces. Like for instance, when I look at Western Kenya, for example, I see a lot of wealth in terms of the gold, in terms of other environmental services that are provided by the ecosystems.
Chicken.
Yeah, chicken is not exactly an environmental service. Probably talk about water and other things, the forest and so on and so forth, yeah? Yeah, probably how we share those services again and how we share those benefits and those resources again will inform how each and every other person will be able to have something they call their own and graduate to, being civil enough, yeah?
Yes.
But before I lose a point,
yes,
before my brother Atamba came in, you had asked me about some of the challenges that farmers are having.
Yes.
And I had just gone around 4. So I wanted to very quickly add that our farmers today have a challenge with the infrastructure, the rural infrastructure.
Yes.
The roads, the power, electrical power.
We saw the picture of the border person who fallen with his milk.
Exactly.
Yes.
Those challenges are really quite big for farmers. We have challenges of new pests and diseases emerging, pests and diseases that were not previously there. And of course, we believe this because of climate change, but of course, there are other, changes that happen within the ecosystem that make some of these things to migrate. Today, there are farmers in Western Kenya, for example, and even parts of Nyanza, who are still struggling with the striga weed, something that we were supposed to have defeated many years ago. And you may be aware that the striga weed alone is playing a very big role in bringing down, the harvest of maize and such like. Yeah, and what I think would then be the best way forward, if I may have to build on what Atamba said, is as a people, are we able to really identify what our priorities are? When we go through our planning and our budgeting, and even the execution of the plans and the budgets, where do our priorities lie?
Yes.
Today, I'm a sad person because even if I had told you earlier that we did a lot of organization and mobilization to ensure that our farmers and other rural people are able to go and be part and parcel of the planning and budgeting process at the CIDP level, I'm also aware of the fact that both the county governments and the national governments, regardless of what appropriation bills were passed in parliament, regardless of what budgets were approved,
yes,
at some point
they're not incorporated.
At some point, they do what we call a supplementary budget. And everything is swept away and new priorities come. And those priorities that come at supplementary budget we don't have an opportunity as citizens to participate and do some decision making around that.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Atamba, I want to take you back in because we're almost out of time. I want you to talk about traceability systems and the role that it can play in resolving some of the challenges we've talked about. For example, if people could trace and tell where this chicken came from, where this maize came from, where these goats, cows, that sort of thing. In modern economies, we have traceability to the point where you can even tell where fruits, veg, flowers from Kenya came from and what chemicals were put in, those sorts of things. This would enable people really get into the accountability space, not just for production, but also for sourcing.
Yeah, no, exactly. We need to move to a level where the farmers, produce from farmers can be secured. And not only for that purpose of securing it, but also for the purpose of also ensuring that the consumer understands what they are consuming. And a lot of people are eating chicken in Nairobi, and I think some of the people I see in Nairobi have even forgotten the indigenous one. So they are eating this one that is very soft, that you can eat without moving your arms. But you realize that, chicken is chicken, where you eat and take care of the plate, where the soup does not reach you. But at the end of the day, these issues that you see when you're talking about insecurity, for example, the banditry and the chicken thieves and the crops thieves, even in other counties is there.
Yes.
But you can address it by ensuring that at the market level, there is a bit of sanity at the market level. That when you show up with the tomatoes today in Kajiado town, that someone stops you before they ask you about the price to ask you, where is your farm?
Yes.
Where did you get these tomatoes from?
Can we see
if we appear with tomatoes, when someone is selling a piece at 10 shillings and you're selling a piece at 5 shillings, there should be immediately a kamkunji to confirm why you are selling your tomatoes very cheaply. Some of the chicken that farmers are losing, are being sold at 300 shillings when the real value of the chicken is 1,000 shillings. But this chicken end up where? They end up on our plates.
Yes, in Nairobi.
Yeah. Even the beef that is being stolen in Baringo and all the banditry activities, the beef is ending up in our plates. So it's important that we ensure that we look at that, because it takes care of that traceability. But also we need to look at regulations, because when we talk about this, then the government says, okay, let's act. Then they come up with regulations. Again, we are the same people who come and say, we don't want the sector to be regulated.
Is the informal nature of our markets one of the deterrents to having real solutions?
It is. It is. A free market is good. An open market is good. Anyone can show up with anything at the market and sell and go home. But we also need to ensure that we need to take care of some of these insecurity issues. So if anyone can show up with maize and sell, then what will we tell the farmers who lose their maize? We don't have any of these mechanisms to ensure that we can tell that there is 500 cobs of maize that were sold at this market in Soi yesterday morning, and a farmer has come to complain, and then we can be able to trace from there and say, so it could be this 500. So can we follow up with the 500 with the person who brought this? So because it's really very petty that as a country, one of the biggest limitations is not that we don't have enough rain, that our soils are not fertile or our animals are not producing enough, that we are stealing from each other in the rural areas. Basically, it's really such a pity. But my point also is that this requires regulations sometimes. So when regulations come, we should be, as actors, flexible enough to look at the regulations, make comments to the regulations, but let us not also be opposed to every regulation that the government tries to bring. There was the Ndengu bill, for example. I worked in the green gram value chain for several years. And the same green gram that a farmer in a place called Zombe in Kitui, which I've been to and worked with farmers there, the farmer is selling their green grams at 25 shillings a kilo. The same green grams is sold here in Kangemi market at 120 shillings. No value addition. You would imagine it has been repainted. The color is the same. Everything is the same, but the price is different.
So it's exploitation.
It's exploitation. So can we, and when someone comes up with such a law, then everyone is like, oh, now they want to tax the Ndengu. They want to tax our chicken. Can we have some system to say that this is where we need regulation, and maybe this is where we don't need regulations? But again, opposing everything is not very useful way forward. Yeah.
I want to give you, gentlemen, just 30 seconds of closing time, and I want you to focus on anything that you feel we might not have dealt in and missed. I'll start with you, Vince.
Yeah, thank you. To close down this discussion, I want to speak to food systems with regard to the current trends that are taking place out there. The shift to what we call agroecology.
Yes.
This is something that we, the farmers, are embracing for the simple reason that it speaks to our origin. Everything that is being discussed today around agroecology is actually what we used to do under our traditional systems of agriculture. So I would want to take this opportunity to encourage our farmers to embrace it and look for ways and means of ensuring that we bring down the cost of production, but we improve the quality of the output and the safety of the food that we produce, so that we are able to feed ourselves in dignity today, but also so that, again, we preserve and conserve the environmental services that enable us to do food production, so that the people who come after us will also be able to produce their own food in a way that will not be constrained. Yeah.
So going back to our roots for regenerative agriculture.
Exactly.
Adam?
Yeah, I think addressing food systems or transforming our food systems is supposed to be holistic. And we cannot transform food systems without tackling poverty, especially in rural areas, rural poverty. We cannot address food system transformation without tackling access to clean energy, without tackling access to water, both for household use and also for agricultural production in rural areas. So for all the people that live in houses where there are taps, remember that the guys in rural areas also deserve those taps. You can imagine how much time you save every morning to take a shower and how much time it takes an average person in a rural area to go and take a shower somewhere behind bananas. So we have to make sure that we are addressing rural development holistically. That is the only way that we can exploit the potential that we have in our food systems. We are not badly off. I think we just need to straighten a few areas. And I think if we address rural development holistically, we are going to see a very big change.
Indeed, thank you. Addressing rural development holistically to drive change. Gentlemen, thank you very much for your time. It has indeed been an interesting discussion around the food systems, its transformation, and the governance aspect. But unfortunately, we have to leave it right there because we are out of time. But thank you for taking the time to talk to us.
Asante.
Well, that there wraps up our discussion for the day. Of course, various different inputs as to how you can, of course, participate when it comes to the discussion around food systems, their transformation, the continued development, and especially as a young person and the advent of technology and how that can then drive further participation and creative, innovative, and fulfilling change. But unfortunately, that's where we have to bring it to a close. My name is Peter Akaba. The news continues to stay with us. We'll see you again tomorrow, same time here on Farm Kenya, to enjoy the rest of your viewing this afternoon.
Unalima